numbers are 572-0383 and 572-0215. Rev-Up St. Lucia, the alpha of radio.
Join the United Workers' Party this and every Thursday on Rev-Up St. Lucia 97.1 FM for an educational and informative program, Meet the Opposition. Participate in exciting discussions from 9 a.m. to 10:30 a.m. Be in the know every Thursday on Rev-Up St. Lucia 97.1 from 9 a.m. to 10:30 a.m.
It's now time for Meet the Opposition, hosted by Lenard Spider Montoute. Mr. Montoute, it's good to see you. Good morning.
Hi, good morning, Andre. Good morning to all our viewers and listeners. And good morning special good morning to those in the diaspora. Thanks for joining us again today on Meet the Opposition. Let me first apologize for the late start. And I'm hoping that we're going to have a guest today and that we're going to have a very interesting program where we will provide you with useful information, and so you can get an opportunity when we open the lines as well to share some insight, ask your questions, and what have you. So, here we go. Meet the Opposition for this week. I would start by reminding you, first and foremost, that it's a big day for the United Workers' Party on Sunday, as the United Workers' Party is staging a massive rally in the village of Miku, that is Miku North, where 17 candidates who will be doing battle for the United Workers' Party in the upcoming general elections will be presented to the populace of St. Lucia. I imagine as well one or two of their policies will be highlighted and so on. And like anything else, there will be entertainment and what have you. So I imagine all UWPs will be in Miku, and other St. Lucians who are interested in finding out what is it that the United Workers' Party has on offer for them as an alternative to the current government. As you know, St. Lucia is riddled with problems in the area of security, in the area of health, in terms of cost of living, and many more. Governance is a big problem as well. And in the news lately is the GPH secret deal that has been partly revealed. Some of it has been revealed, and of course we found out that what was revealed was actually shocking. No wonder there was that big effort to conceal the details of the agreement with GPH, and the lack of accountability on the part of the government who is supposed to account to us about our business, especially when it comes to our premier assets such as our ports. But we'll talk about that a little more during the course of the program. And like anything else, I don't think there is any news to break, because telling you there was another murder is like telling you the sun is shining in St. Lucia. So again, it continues unabated, the homicides. I understand that there was a gruesome chopping that took place, I think it was yesterday. But you see, we talk about the incidents of homicides, but what we hardly talk about now, because that has become second place, is the number of people who are injured. Because I keep saying that I imagine that when you look at the number of homicides, you can easily say that in terms of people who are injured as a result of violent crime may be threefold what we hear in terms of homicides. Because while we had a little respite in terms of the killings, I'm telling you, the gun violence was not totally absent. There was a slight reprieve, but there were gun violence taking place. You heard of people being shot and so on. Thank God there were no killings then. So I want again to make an appeal to St. Lucians, to the gangsters, the criminals out there. Please, what you're doing is uncalled for. Like they say, if you live by the sword, you die by the sword. So that life that you're living, you're taking away lives and you're putting your life in jeopardy. Because when a young man, particularly, I say young man because we have women who have been killed and children as well, but especially the young men, they seem to be the number one victims. When a young man is gunned down or chopped in the prime of his life, it is a loss, because all the investment that has been made to get that individual to that stage in life, whereas he should be here producing and helping to develop our country, they are gone. Already we are complaining that we have an aging population, and when we are destroying the youth who ought to form part of that population, who are supposed to carry the nation in the now and in the near future, they are dying, and those who are not dead, if the law enforcement does its work, they will end up incarcerated and so on. So, it is a loss all around, not to mention we, the innocent people who are not involved in criminal activity, we live our lives in fear, we are at risk. Some of us get caught in the crossfire, and it makes for a very chaotic, unruly country where it can have dire consequences for us, not only in terms of our quality of life, but in terms of our economy and all of those things. So I keep saying so. Our young people should try to find a better way to live their lives in terms of the things that they engage in. They should find a better way to resolve their conflicts. And I also want to say that our law enforcement people should do their best to try to stem the tide of criminal activity in St. Lucia, especially the violent crimes that are associated with gun violence. And of course, we will not, while people will tell you do not politicize crime, we cannot leave out the government, whose primary responsibility it is, as I always say, to provide safety and security for its citizens. So, ladies and gentlemen, we will have discussions on a number of those topics and so on. But I want to start first and foremost with GPH, and what has gone down recently. In the last sitting of the House, we got some shocking news when Alan Shasney, the leader of the opposition, dropped a bombshell, so to speak, in terms of revealing some of the details that the government has meticulously tried to hide from us. We know in the case of Soufriere, Emma Hippolyte told you she was on a secret date and she made a secret deal, and up to now have not revealed to the people of Soufriere or St. Lucia what that secret deal was that she made on her secret date. We have Ernest Hilaire, who is the Minister of Investment and the Parliamentary Representative for Castries South. He is the one who negotiated the deal with GPH, and in effect, that deal is an agreement to have our Port Castries and Port Soufriere handed over to GPH for 30 years with a possibility of renewing that arrangement for another 10 years. Of course, GPH will be given that option, so it can be a possible 40 years. And we kept asking, the opposition at least kept asking, what were the details of that arrangement? And ladies and gentlemen, it is our patrimony. It is our assets that were in play, not personal assets of the politicians. But they refused to provide St. Lucians. And now we are discovering why, the reasons why they kept the information so secretive. That is because they realized themselves that it was egregious. They realized themselves that it was lopsided. They realized themselves that it was almost criminal what they have done in terms of giving away our asset. Now, I talk about our asset. There are other cases, but I want to focus on GPH because our port, from day one, I kept saying so. Our port is one of our primary revenue-generating assets that we have in this country. And in the case of Port Castries and Port Soufriere, they both were in operation. They both were generating revenue. And we took that and actually placed it in the hands of foreigners. Now, this is a government, when in opposition, talked about foreigners in all kind of derogatory ways, oppose any arrangement that were made with foreigners. We remember their protests against Cabot, and one of the things that they said was that Cabot borrowed money from the NIC, and that is not outside of the mandate of the NIC. The NIC, apart from collecting our contributions to ensure that we have a pension when the time comes, also is mandated to find ways of making investments so that they can grow the sums to ensure that when the time comes for us to get our pension, that the resources are there. Already we have a problem with the workforce, the size of the workforce, and the number of young people that we have in this country. But the St. Lucia Labour Party went on a big protest against the development at Cabot, and one of the things they were saying is that Cabot borrowed money from the NIC. Of course, that money has been repaid. NIC got some interest on it, not as much as they could have gotten, because Cabot went ahead and paid the full amount prematurely because of all the pressure and the negative publicity that was coming from the St. Lucia Labour Party. Today, they're in government, the same Cabot, you have them say nothing about it. They've done nothing different. They embraced Cabot. They were sipping champagne and, eating caviar and doing everything else while they were opening the project, and they have no negative criticisms of it. That's the kind of hypocrisy for political expedience that we see from the St. Lucia Labour Party that we must be mindful of. Then, before I go further, let me welcome my guest, Mr. Guy Joseph, the Deputy Political Leader of the United Workers' Party and the endorsed candidate for Castries Southeast. Good morning, Mr. Joseph.
Good morning to you. Good morning, Andrea. Good morning to listeners and viewers.
Morning, Mr. Joseph.
Andrea, I'll soon be handing over to Guy, because, what I'm talking about there, partly, Guy was a lot more involved in that than I am by virtue of the portfolio that he held. Mm-hmm. And so he would have a lot more details, although I have a lot of the facts here in front of me. But I want to engage in a discussion, because we have to, enlighten St. Lucians as to exactly what is taking place and why our government has been so secretive about everything that they do, because of the way that they do it and what it is that they do. And I must say, I keep saying that, and Andre, you would have heard me say that before, I do not buy for a moment that it is because we have foolish people in government. I do not buy for a moment that those people in government are being outsmarted. They are educated people. They are smart people. But for them to enter into that kind of lopsided deal in favor of those foreign companies begs the question, why? And anybody's guess is as good as mine. Somebody must be benefiting to have done something like we've seen in the case of GPH, like we're seeing in the Citizens by Investment Program, and so on. Somebody is benefiting. The question is who. But you see, eventually I'm hoping that we can get to the bottom of that. But for now, let's deal with the issue at hand.
Just before you move on, just for the benefit of maybe I imagine some of our listeners and viewers, I need you to explain when you're ready exactly what this $1 thing is, because it seems like it's the cardinal sin.
Right.
So as best as you can, explain it that the layman can understand what this is all about when you're ready.
Okay. So normally when you bring in an investor and they're coming to do a development, like we had in Viewport with DSH,
right?
Like we had with the Diamond, like you can call it the Orange Grove, the Diamond. There are many other. It is not uncommon that for the developer to come in, for them to do development, they need land. It is not uncommon for them to lease that land from government. But the kinds of lease that they engage in very often, because they're doing a development, is what is called an emphyteutic lease. Now, I will quickly explain what an emphyteutic lease is to our listeners. An emphyteutic lease is not just an ordinary lease where you just pay rent and that is it. And when you have an emphyteutic lease, it gives you almost as much powers as the owner. So you're almost like the owner of that property for the duration of the time. Now, emphyteutic leases are long-term leases, normally from about 27 years to 99 years. There are even cases where it goes to eternity, which in effect they should have just said it's sold, right? But you have 99 years normally is the upper limit. And so when you enter into that lease, Andre, when I say that you have entitlements and rights and authorities of like the owner would for that duration of time, for example, you can mortgage that property, okay? So the lease here, and normally those leases are done at what we call a peppercorn rate, like rock bottom price, because just to say they pay something, but really you give them the land so that they can carry out the investment.
And so why is that done? Is it to encourage the investor?
To entice them, right? To make it attractive. So what they have done in this case now, I want to quickly say, because some caller will tell you that we did the same thing for DSH. Now, you have Richard on a weekly basis saying that we gave 1,000 acres of land for $1 square,
Yes.
a dollar an acre? Yeah. But that is not true. We have said so many times, that is not true. Less than 200 acres will was leased to Theo Hakim in the DSH program to do the horse racing track and so on. But his money, okay, did the horse racing track. Again, it is not true that it was CIP money or government money. It was his money. So that was the investment that he brought. Now let us remember that land in Viewfort. I know Guy will not say that because those politicians want to be politically correct. But it was wasteland, Andre. Okay? It was wasteland. Guy will tell you it was savanna, it was agricultural land, he will say those things. There was hardly any productivity coming out of that land. Because if he says that, I'm going to ask him how much was anybody making out of that land, Andre? Nothing. Okay? So the land was there, literally underproductive. So that land was used. Compare that to us giving GPH.
So sorry, in the case of Theo Hakim, it was
about 180 something acres at $1 an acre.
Okay.
Okay, and like I said, savanna lands. In the case of GPH, we gave them our port, Andre. Let me explain something to you in case it has not occurred to you. In Castries, I heard the current parliamentary representative of Castries, Richard Frederick, say that land in Castries is going at $1,000 a square foot. Okay? $1,000 a square foot. I know, because I have been indiscreet enough to go and ask for the price of waterfront property, Andre. Okay, and when I heard the price, I had to run. When you talk about waterfront property, that is even more at a premium price than land in the city. So you're talking about waterfront property in the city, and it's not just waterfront property where you're talking about some kai near the sea. You're not talking about some beach that just collecting, how you call the seaweed, So got some. We're talking about waterfront property that's a port where there is business taking place. We're transacting commerce there on a daily basis. We have cargo, we have cruise ships, we have all these things happening there. So that is a property that is generating a big revenue for this country. Okay? They took that property and leased it to GPH, okay, for 30 years. Possibly 40 years. If GPH chooses, they can go for 40 years.
For $40.
For $1.
$40.
For $40. Because it's $1 a year. Okay? $1 a year for the 40 years. So you're right, Guy. One thing, your math's sharper than mine, I know that for sure. For $40. And I'm saying, they came, Andre, and they have, and all that time, we don't know that. We don't know that. You ask me how Alan Chasney and Guy and them got that information.
When you say we, you're talking about the opposition?
The St. Lucian population.
Okay.
Don't know. But the opposition, I must commend them, are doing their job. Although it should not be that way, that you have to dig and probe and so on, because they've been asking for a while. They had to, I don't know if they had to capsize St. Lucia to get the information, but they got the information. It's out. And even when the information was revealed, even when the information was revealed, Ernest Healer stood in the House and denied and challenged Alan Chasney and told him, stood on a point of order and said that Alan Chasney was misleading the House. There was no agreement for $1 a square foot per year for 30 to 40 years. He actually stood in the House and did that. So much so that the Speaker agreed to suspend the sitting of the House for Alan Chasney to go and get documents to prove. Now, first of all, an opposition member, according to the standing orders, can make claims and allegations without any proof. Okay? The government minister now, by virtue of his position, must provide proof if he makes any claim or anything like that. So it should have been Ernest Healer who should have come to the House with a document showing that what Alan Chasney said is not true. But Alan Chasney was asked to provide evidence, and he agreed. I say, wow. I don't think Ernest would stand up publicly, televise sitting of the House and say that that is not true when he knows. Because he would know. He's the one who negotiated it. Lo and behold, they took a 15-minute break. When Alan Chasney came back, Alan Chasney is presenting a document, reading from the document, saying that our government went into a lease agreement with GPH where they are giving them our port, the land of our port, for $1 EC dollar
a year,
$1 a square foot per year. No, a dollar. Sorry. Overall, sorry, $1 a year. They're giving them the pot for $1 a year for 30 to 40 years. Andre, the man still tried to wriggle his way out of that, But of course, the evidence was there. And that is how St. Lucians came to know that is the kind of egregious agreement, negotiation that took place and that we are into with GPH, a foreign company. Now, what is worse? GPH had not moved a spade, but they were collecting millions already at the dock. Because the money that Strasbourg was collecting, they are now collecting it. And in addition to that...
And by the way, this loan that GPH is said to have paid for Slasper, is it something that they already paid or it's an ongoing thing?
Okay. They took a loan.
Who's they?
GPH. Let me just say something to you. I heard somebody say something on Newsspin, and I'm going to repeat it. The fellas came here, GPH, just like the amigos, with a little briefcase and the other hand swinging. At least the amigos used to come with some cloth in the briefcase. They came with nothing. They use our pot as collateral to go to the bank to secure their loan, get the money. And now, Andre, my simple question, common sense question is, why couldn't Slasper do that themselves? So you tell me, why should Slasper go to the trouble of doing it? So that they used to get $6.50 for every passenger, cruise ship passenger who came here before. The cruise ships agreed to increase the price to $12.50, so that extra, that's $6.50 plus the extra $6 would come to Slasper. And Slasper normally gives solid waste $150, give government whatever they're giving them and so on. All that money would be ours. And Slasper did not have a problem paying the loan. But now that they've handed it over to GPH, guess what the deal is? When the cruise ships come, the $12.50 per head per passenger, GPH collects it, gives solid waste $150, gives Slasper $1, and they keep $10 for themselves.
By the way, is that EC or US?
US. I mean, $10 for themselves.
On the question that Andre asked, there is no clear indication that Slasper's loan has been paid off. My understanding is they took over the loan and they continue to service the loan every time a payment is due. So it's not that GPH came in and took, and that is subject to correction. But from all my research on this, what I'm finding out is they took over the loan and they are continuing to pay the loan. So if GPH falls tomorrow, they know it, let's say the business goes bankrupt, what happens? Or the owners have changed, so we need to be aware. The original owners that the government went into the negotiations with have sold the majority shares of GPH to another party. If that happens, the loan falls right back on government of St. Lucia, because it's your port. So there's no clear indication. The Minister of Port, who is Stevenson King, has not explained. The Prime Minister, who is the minister responsible for the financial operations of Slasper, have not explained. And Ernest Hille did not have that authority because he is the Minister for Investment. He is not the minister responsible for ports. He is the Minister for Tourism. How can the Minister of Tourism go into a financial arrangement that only the Prime Minister and Minister of Finance? You remember how much the Labour Party criticized me about some Pajoa letter they claimed that was written, saying that I don't have no authority to commit the government of St. Lucia to any financial transaction. I know Nobody has that authority except the Minister of Finance. I never committed the government of St. Lucia to any financial or commitment to any entity. But here we have a Minister of Tourism and Investment committing the government to financial arrangements. And if you look at the behavior of the parliamentarians when the document was presented, they looked more surprised than Alan Chasney and Bradley Felix. Because at least Mr. Chasney knew the document existed and he could have presented it. So it appears to me, Andre and St. Lucians, that this cabinet we have there, they are making decisions blindly. A member brings a document, nobody researches, nobody finds out what it's about, and they just go into the arrangement. That's not the only one. My understanding is the land they claim they just bought for over $15 million, where the Gaiety was, where is leased for the same $1. You heard me, Andre? St. Lucia? So here's the government going and buy that land for over $15 million and now gives NH ownership of the land to use it as collateral to put the building for $1 a year. Same type of arrangement. How does this government, how does Philip J. Pierre as the Minister of Finance explain these transactions to the people of St. Lucia? And that's why I'm baffled that our reporters go, there's pre-cabinet briefing, and we are not hearing these questions. I don't mind there's not an answer from the Prime Minister, but at least I expect a reporter, other than Lisa, who would put a tough question here and there. It's like peeping news they giving the fellas. Their own PR persons are the ones asking questions sometimes. So St. Lucia needs to pay attention. You remember FFF, Friends, Family and Foreigners, is now, I've always said, everything you see Labour criticize and tell you about, that's exactly what they will do.
So tell me, okay, both administrations criticizing each other for selling property or leasing property for $1. So why is that happening? Why the criticism over this dollar issue? If both administrations are doing it.
It is kind of standard practice that governments do that to attract investors. And
yes.
But the point is, what is the overall arrangement in terms of the benefits that will be derived for us as St. Lucians as a country? That is what is important. In the case of DSH, for example, we gave them the land that was just there underutilized. They built a horse racing track at their expense. And I've heard the leader of the opposition say on many occasions that is not a very commercially viable business, horse racing, but it attracts ancillary business economic activities, in the sense that many rich people, that's a spot for rich people, would come. Hopefully they would invest in St. Lucia. There was a development that was going to take place with the hotels and all the condos and all of those things that would, that would be brought in there as when I say ancillary, those would be the main investment, so to speak. But the land that would be used for those things was being sold, at what, $60,000,
$65,000
US an acre.
Per acre.
All right, they were not just given to them. You understand? But in the case of the port, we gave it at $1 a square foot. $1 a year, sorry, right? We give it at $1 for the year. They pay $1 for 30 to 40 years. And in return, the $12.50 that we are supposed to be collecting now, if they collect it, we get $2.50 out of it. Solid waste $1.50 and SLASPA $1, and they get $10 out of it. Now, we are projecting that we should go up to about 1 million cruise passengers a year. Okay? SLASPA will get about $1 million, and they will make about $10 million a year. Now, Andre, that's the exchange that took place there. All right? Now, you telling me about they will develop the port. SLASPA could have done that themselves, and all the profits could have remained with us. When I say with us, because SLASPA is a statutory government institution. When they have the money, whatever they do is the state's property. You understand what I'm saying? Plus, they would have been able to give government a certain amount like they did. When they were making 650, the solid waste got 150, government got 250, and SLASPA got 250. Okay?
If I may add to what Spider has indicated there, it is not really standard practice that you lease land for $1. We have to know the type of investment that will attract leasing land for $1. So if somebody from, let's say, Dubai comes here and they say, I'm going to build a cricket stadium in St. Lucia. A cricket stadium is going to generate economic activity in an area where there's not economic activity of this nature. You can lease them land because it's not really profitable. So none of the hotels you would see built in St. Lucia would get a lease of land for $1 a year. The horse racing track got the lease for $1 because, as Spider indicated, a horse racing track is not that much of a revenue generator. It's not a profitable entity. It's the ancillary services around it that generates the economic activity. So what would end up happening is that is why the place where the hotel was going to be built, where the condos were going to be built, where the shopping areas was going to be built, all of that land was being sold at over 65,000 US per acre. That is more than the Labour Party had sold the Black Bay lands to build a hotel.
Let me just say, guy, I bought agricultural land, Andre. Agricultural land, and what it had on it at the time was like some bananas and a couple of coconut trees and so on, for $32,000. That's easy, yeah? $32,000 an acre. Okay, that land guy is talking about there. I didn't go into bananas, but if I could have gone into bananas and be generating revenue, I only paid $32,000 an acre. In the case of Viewport, I challenge anybody to tell me how much money was being generated there. Okay? Let's do nothing.
Yes, so it is to understand the mechanics of it. So that is why we mapped out how many acres the horse racing track would occupy. And that is the exact amount of land that was leased for $1. Every other square foot of land that Theo Akim would use, he was paying the market value for the land in that area at the time. So that cannot be compared to what happened. Port Castries was already a going concern. It's a well-established business. It is generating millions of dollars on a yearly basis already. So if you take, the government have what we call special development areas. The Special Development Area Act was enforced so that in an area where you are going to develop, where there's no development yet, you get to declare it a special, so it can attract better concessions to encourage investment to go into these areas. But government use it badly. Richard was doing a development somewhere up in the north that is well developed, and the Labour Party made it a special development area for him so he could get special incentives. So there are established procedures in government. You cannot go and give a port. If GPH came to build a new port, let's say they went to Dauphin and they were building a new port there, You could lease them the land there for $1 a square foot because there's nothing developing there.
Yeah.
But you tell me in the heart of the city, where you have all your cargo ships coming, you have all your cruise ships coming in already, you listen it to them for $1. I mean, what is the rationale for this?
But let me also say, Guy, let's not forget that people talking about, like, including Unesile. Oh, but they pay off the loan of $20 million for SLASPA, and they're spending $42 million.
No, all
told.
45 million. 18 for the loan of SLASPA and 27 million in investment.
To develop the port, right? Now.
And let me give a real quick breakdown.
That's no favor they did. Yeah.
Let me give him in 2 years, at 10 million US a year, they would be making from just the passengers. We've not spoken about the other things they will lease and what they control. We're just talking about cruise ships and cruise ship arrivals. In 2 years, the loan of SLASPA will be paid at the $10 US per passenger. 1 million passengers is $20 million. The part of the loan they took over, don't ask me how, the loan was 22 million, they took on $18 million of the loan. Maybe
perhaps SLASPA had already paid off.
Maybe the other 4 million went from between the negotiations to the time. It could have maybe covered the 4 million.
Again,
then,
we have to be speculating, Andre, because
then
they provide information.
The other 27 million they would spend, Andre, they would make that in another 3 years. So altogether, in 5 years, just from the passenger fees, it would cover in 5 years $50 million. The investment is $45 million. The next 25 years is theirs to continue collecting the $10. And you know the worst part of that agreement?
You said $10. Just remember, the price can go up.
It can go up.
And if it
in
does,
fact, in the case of Antigua, it is going to go up to $30 a passenger, every passenger that comes in, with the same GPH. We have not seen the other agreement that they have as to how high the fees can go in St. Lucia. So let's say the fees, because I don't think over 30 years the fees will remain at $12. Let's say it goes to $20. You know how much money GPH is going to be making on St. Lucia?
Yeah, and Ernest is trying to make it sound like they're doing us a favor. They're taking money from us that should have remained with us, because SLASPA has proven that they are capable of operating the port. They have been doing it for years, you know.
Now, Andre, everybody is saying...
But Guy, before you go further, don't forget to talk about the concession agreement.
The concession agreement is even worse than that. Everything they do is duty-free. They pay no taxes in St. Lucia, Andre. No taxes on profits. They can repatriate all their profits without paying $1 tax in St. Lucia. That is in a cabinet conclusion, you know. That is a decision that all the cabinet ministers sat withholding tax. You remember how much they went after us when we waived withholding tax for sandals, something that the hotels have been enjoying for years. You gave, GPH didn't build anything on the port. They found a port. The first thing they started doing was collecting money. That's the best business to go into, Andrew. They didn't have to buy a block to put there. All they had to do was start collecting money. In fact, they took over in the cruise season when money was coming in. So think of it that way. When you look at what they have inherited, and if the deal is like Antigua's deal, where it can go up higher, and they will decide how much. Now, I was telling you about the concession agreement. Everything they do is tax-free. Everything they buy, even to buy their private vehicles to do their business, is duty-free. Then all people who is affiliated to them, persons who are affiliated to them and do business with them, benefit from the tax break that they have. And then it doesn't require them to keep a certain amount of the money in St. Lucia. They have been given the latitude by cabinet to repatriate all their profits without paying $1 tax in St. Lucia. I mean, who does that? What kind of government would go into an arrangement like this with a company? It's like you handed. They should have put if they felt SLASPA was not good enough, put a consortium of St. Lucians. Because here's what people don't know, Andre. GPH does not own a single cruise ship that carries 10 people. In other words, they don't have a speedboat that can bring 5 passengers. All they are is a middleman. And in the world of business, you're looking to cut out middlemen so that the profits can be better for the owners of the business. You go, SLASPA is owned by the government of St. Lucia. You know what the Ministry of Finance advised the government? So when Philip J. Pierre tells us, he takes his advice from the experts for the police and for COVID and for this. That's not true, Andre. Because the team of experts they put together advised them that that's a bad deal. They should not go into it. It's not beneficial financially to St. Lucia, and SLASPA's plan is a better plan. They still went ahead. So the question is why? How did we end up giving away our ports? And GPH cannot bring a cruise ship into St. Lucia because they don't own one.
So from the opposition's perspective, what is it that St. Lucia is getting from this GPH arrangement? What are we getting?
We've lost over the duration of that project, that arrangement, St. Lucia will lose over $1 billion. And think of what $1 billion could do for education, for healthcare, for our road network, or for choose anything you want in St. Lucia. Because all government had to do was the report from the Ministry of Finance told them. When it was $6.50, Andre, solid waste got $1.50, SLASPA got $2.50, and the government got $2.50. Everything SLASPA was doing was on its $2.50. So if there was a challenge, Ministry of Finance was saying, if SLASPA had any challenge in meeting its obligations, all they had to do was allow SLASPA to take the $2.50 that government was getting, because SLASPA is owned by government. The loan at Point Seraphine would not be forever. But what they are not telling us, Andre, and what's in the agreement, is all the maintenance has to be done by SLASPA. So imagine, GPH is collecting $10. SLASPA is getting $1. SLASPA has to dredge, maintain the buildings. And I challenge the Labour Party government. They have meet the ministers on a Friday. I challenge one of them, like we challenge Hile in the parliament, to prove that what we are saying there is not true. Because I will come with the agreement and I will show you. It is written in black and white. You know, Andre, it hurts me. I've said, when I heard that the government actually went into that arrangement, it broke my spirit. You know why? Because as much as UWP will renegotiate this contract, and I'm saying to St. Lucia, when we get into government, one of the first orders of business is we are going to bring GPH to the table. If we can prove there's any bribery anywhere, it is going to nullify that agreement. So that's going to be our first attempt. But we must renegotiate this arrangement. There's no way for the next 40 years, Andre. And there's in the formula, there's nothing that says St. Lucia will get more money than its dollar, you know. In fact, the Ministry of Finance advised the government that make sure the amount of money that SLASPA gets will be sufficient to do the maintenance, not to run the operations of SLASPA, you know. You know what I see happening? Just now, government will have to give a subvention. You see, just like when Spider was in charge of National Lotteries was making millions of dollars a year. National Lotteries could sustain itself and run all the programs that it was running. You know what has happened with the $80 million loan? And my understanding is there's another $30 million that they have not told us about for the swimming pool. A swimming pool that started at 10 million is now at 30 million. So altogether, the money that National Lotteries has to pay back in loans is 120 or 110 million dollars at about how much? 5 or 6% interest. So think of it that way. So the $1 million they are making, and if anybody want to challenge me, go into the budget for this financial year, 2025 to 2026. There is a subvention from the government for the National Lotteries Authority. An entity that was making money for itself, running itself efficiently, being able to support sports programs, scholarships, sports scholarships, get our teams to travel, all kinds of things. Why you think so many sporting activities have not taken place? Why you think some of our teams cannot travel overseas? Parents having children going and represent national teams have to push their hands in their pocket to pay some of the finances. Because you know why? The $1 million that they are making is just to service the loans, and up to now, nobody can tell us how the money was spent, how much was spent. They said they spent 40 million on the stadium. I went to cricket, Andre. I've not seen the same old seats I used to sit on when the stadium was first built is what is there. I see the rust everywhere. I don't see anything that makes the... In fact, the grounds is the worst that I have ever seen it. The actual ground itself, the playing area. So we are saying this, that there is a serious crisis in how the finances of this country is being managed. It's crazy. No, nobody can make financial sense out of what they have done. So a UWP government, upon assuming office, will begin renegotiation, and we are putting GPH on notice from now that be prepared to come back to the table, because there's no way a UWP government will come and sit in office for 5 years and accept that you are going to keep $10 while we continue to get $1. We have to maintain the pot. Andre, have you seen the condition of the pot? In fact, one of the estimates for fixing one section of the pot is over $40 million. Now, my understanding is this is not GPH job, you know. This is SLASPA. So government is going to go and take a $40 million loan to fix the pot while GPH is collecting our $10.
So you said solid waste gets how much?
$1.50.
So I'm just curious, why solid waste? I'm just curious.
It was part of the agreement. Instead of putting a tax on garbage collection, so because the cruise ships were coming in, and you know there was all that issue with going green, being global. So it was enticing to engage them in a discussion that, look here, because remember the cruise ships also drop off a lot of their, when they come here, you see a lot of garbage go to the dump. So the structure of government is when you have revenues coming in, you can assign revenues. So just like we did the $1.50 on the gas to go for road maintenance. So when the negotiations was done with the cruise lines, we got our $6.50. The government allocated $1.50 out of that to maintain the disposal of garbage. What I find strange is all prices have gone up so much. The fees went up from $6.50 to $12, almost 100%. In the negotiations, the government didn't see that solid waste needed at least another 50 cents or $1. So instead of giving GPH $10, you couldn't give GPH $9 and give solid waste an extra $1 so that we could have better garbage disposal, so that the people who work in this thing, it's an unhealthy environment to work. You look at the people working on the garbage trucks, they are not properly attired. They have to inhale all. And you mean our government is giving GPH, because GPH has not brought a passenger to St. Lucia. They didn't come and add. In fact, you know what has happened in the last 3 months? Our cruise ship arrivals have dropped by 72% in the last 3 months. Andre, you can recall, even in the off season, we always had a cruise ship every week in the harbor. Carnival used to come 52 times for that. When last did you see a cruise ship in the harbor? You drive through town regular. When last? You know what? The cruise ships told us, bring the tax to where we want, but don't go into an arrangement with GPH. That is why the $12.50 is something that we had negotiated already, so they knew. He didn't have to go and negotiate with no cruise ship to raise it to $12. That was on the table already, and that money was to be used to build a cruise port in Vieux-Fort. And you know what? The government, I cannot comprehend how Philip J. Pierre, as Prime Minister, could have allowed Healy to go into that arrangement. So the extra money we were putting in there was to build the cruise port in Vieux-Fort. That's why they signed the arrangement with GPH to say that if anything is to be done in the south of the island, the first right of refusal is that of GPH. So we cannot build a single port anywhere in St. Lucia, not in Dauphin, not in Soufrière, not in Gros-Islet, not in Ancillary, if we do not go to GPH. And if GPH say, I will do it, the government of St. Lucia cannot do it. Can you believe that a government would go into an arrangement like this? Spider, you wanted to say?
Yeah, I wanted to say, Guy, you keep talking about the $12.50 head tax for each cruise ship passenger. And as bad as Guy has said that today, there's also another concern of mine, Guy, and I want you to address that briefly. You see, apart from that head tax on cruise passengers, Andre, you see all those rental charges for vendors, taxi operators, other people who do business at the facility. That will be increased by GPH. Now, let me just say something to you. GPH is a business, private business, operating to make profit. When it is SLASPA is a government-owned entity. Andre, if I'm a taxi driver and they say to me to operate at Point Serafina or wherever on the port, the price will go up, let's say from $100 to $200. Andre, when I start to cry, call the other taxi drivers and so on. If Guy Joseph is a minister of government, he's a representative and so on, the politicians will hear you because they need your support and they will listen to you. GPH don't owe you anything. They don't have to hear you, they don't have to listen to you. They don't care about your concern. It's about profit making that they are concerned about. That is a concern of mine. So I'm saying to the vendors, the taxi drivers, and other operators at the port, beware what might happen to them very soon. Besides, GPH can decide. You know, there's confectionery thing that we have where you come and sell this and sell that, restaurants and all that. They may just decide they're going to operate those things because it is their port, and there's nothing St. Lucia can do about that. These are the concerns. They can decide to they operate in their tours, their vehicles come in and do tours and so on. So we put a lot in jeopardy there that St. Lucians have to be mindful of. Who is going to hear your cry? Like I said, Alan Chasney, Guy Joseph, Dominic Fede, all of them, they have to hear your cry because they are your servants. They need your vote come the next general election. So you can come together as taxi drivers, as vendors, and put pressure on the government to say, reduce the price, or we're not paying that kind of thing. So you can talk to GPH. Who are you?
Yeah,
GPH is not answerable to you.
To add to it, because Andre, I have the document here in my hand of the GPH model for business. Because I don't just come and say things to people. The bulk of GPH earnings, 40% of the money they make is from the ancillary services at the ports.
Like the vendors and vending and all those things.
Yes.
That is important, Andre. That is important.
On page 6 of that, Andre, it says GPH business model. Terminal services, embarkation, disembarkation services, check-in, luggage security. Port services, berthing, mooring, shore services, stevedoring, water supply. So, GPH will want Wasco to sell in the water at a cheaper price, and he will want to sell the water. GPH will sell the water to the cruise ships at a higher price. You know, Carnival Cruise Lines was pulling out of St. Lucia because Dominica was giving them water free and they had to pay $40 1,000 gallons there. Mr. Chasney and myself had to go up to Miami, renegotiate, and reduce the price of the water to $20. So, I'm telling St. Lucians, I believe the government has asked GPH not to implement too many things before the election. Wait after the election, and they will do what they want to do. Because a business model of a company is its business model. That's the Bible. That's what it goes by. But I will tell you more.
But before you say more, Guy, let me just plug in here, Andre. You see what Guy said there? It's crucial. After the election, there are certain things they will not do now. But just look at the people who have to be displaced at Ban and how they were treated. Just think about it. You know, those people were just asked to move, and in no time, they were getting them out. And what was the compensation? You think if it was Slasper that was carrying out that operation, who owned the port and so on, and a government that cares, would not have consulted with the people, negotiated a better package, a better deal with them? And that, again, I want to, Guy, before you comment, I want to give Tommy kudos.
Just a quick question. With all these concessions that GPH is receiving, don't you think maybe there's some benefit or some other benefits that GPH has arranged with the government that will accrue to the citizens of the country?
No, I believe there's some benefit, but not to the citizens.
Yeah. And already we've seen signs of it, like benefits for political gain for individuals. Because Richard Frederick negotiated some small project and so on. I'm saying when you look at what you gave away for what you get in, that's,
Andre,
chicken feed, that's child's play.
There's no benefit to St. Lucia.
Exactly.
Nobody. The benefit is money. You give away the money. How are you going to benefit in giving it? If you are a philanthropist and you've accumulated billions of dollars in wealth, and you say, okay, I want to give away half of my wealth to take care of the poor. You get a level of satisfaction from this. But this is a business we're talking about there now. Here's what, they have the revenue breakdown, They say primary port services, which are the ones I outlined there, make 70 to 75% of their money. Here's how they make the 25 to 30% revenue breakdown. Ancillary services, guest information centers, GPH controls that. Booth selling tickets and attractions, they control that. So in other words, if you want a tour to the Sulphur Springs, you have to go to them to buy it. So if you sell in the tour at the Sulphur Springs for, let's say, the mud bath, $100, they can say, we'll sell it for $150, they will take the 50. Or, as it is happening now at some of the hotels, if you sell your tour for $100, for them to sell it at the hotel for you, they have to make 35% or 30% or 20% of it. So is that, so I want the people to hear, airport transfers, luggage services. What does GPH have to do with airport transfers?
Cut the bread of the taxi drivers.
Huh? How did GPH get involved in airport transfers and luggage services? I want the government of St. Lucia. Travel, retail, offices, F&B in public areas. That's food and beverage in public areas. So the vendors who think they come in and fix the arcade for them, when the time is right, if UWP is not there to change what GPH is going to do, people will really understand. And you know what Philip JP said? By the time that deal will end, he'll not be around anymore. And I think most of those, because think of it, 40 years, Andre, most of us are past 50. Huh? So you going into an arrangement, you sell out the country
And
for the next.
I didn't need that reality check, you know.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Oh, you're 70? You're on 70 now?
No, I'm in my 60s.
Oh, okay.
okay, but I want to give them the office, food and beverage, car parking. In other words, for you to come and park a vehicle there, the taxi drivers, for you to park there to come and pick up a tourist, you will have to pay a fee to GPH. Andre, St. Lucians have not, you know, we want to see things happen for us to believe it. But it is already written. It is in the business model. Advertising and events. Orders, and in bracket it has marina, vending, crew center, etc. So they will run the laundry where the crew can wash their clothes. They will run everything. That is the business model, and it says ancillary services make up 25 to 30%. I didn't create that, Andre. This is the business model of GPH. So don't tell me I'm not in government. I know about these things. The government who went into the arrangement didn't know that. That you selling out. And I've told the taxi drivers, this is not to incite any uprising against a government. This is about protecting the interest of these families and their livelihoods. All our tour operators, Barefoot Holiday, Foster and Inc., you name it, all of them, all of the tour guides that are engaged on these buses, what is going to happen? Because I know the model. I've spoken to other entities where GPH operate, which I will not take the liberty of disclosing because you don't want to compromise your sources. But what GPH model is, they make their port a destination. So they don't need nobody to go outside of the port because they are going to be controlling everything on the port. And that's where they make their money. So they make the port the destination. That is why they had the government to lease the lands for them of the port so that they can build their things and they can control it. So when a passenger come in and they don't want to go on a Tortoise Supra, they don't want to go up Pigeon Point, how do the vendors outside benefit when everything inside is controlled by GPH?
So, guy, if I'm hearing you correctly, when Ernest Healer stands in the house and say, well, you have to look at the concession agreement. They're going to build restaurants. They're going to build... Andre, for themselves. If you had a different situation, you, Andre, as a restaurateur that is in food and beverage and so on, I mean, government not going to be, or SLAS not going to be involved in that. They would rent it out to you, and you come and set up your restaurant, from what Guy is telling you there right now. GPH looking to make their profit from all of those services. I mean, when you talk about a bad deal, I don't know how much worse it can get, you know. And for us to accept something like that from our government, honestly.
It's a scary situation that we have found ourselves in. And what is even more scary, Andre, is the government is contemplating going the same direction with the airport. So here we were. And I want them to tell St. Lucians how much money has been collected from the airport development tax from the time that the UWP reintroduced it. Because remember, Kenny Anthony had stopped. If they had not stopped the airport development tax, we would have had more money than we needed to build the airport in cash now. We would not have to take a single loan. That was the foresight and vision of a UWP government. But you know what Kenny Anthony said on the Labour Party? We have not laid a block on the ground, so we should not be collecting any money. You know how many countries, so what has GPH done that it's collecting our money? So we could not collect our money for the airport because we have not put a block on the ground. But a whole year before GPH even mobilized a crane, they could have been collecting our money. You see the mentality of labor and why St. Lucia is never progressive under Labour Party government.
Guy, I want to put, I mean, I'm happy I heard you say, and the reason why I'm saying so is you are a deputy political leader in the UWP. So you are way up in the hierarchy of the UWP, and if you're a former government, you will be in that cabinet. And it was heartening to hear you say that a UWP government will renegotiate that arrangement. But Guy, very concerning to me. I'm not from Viewfort. I'm from Grosily. However, anything economic activity anywhere in St. Lucia benefits me.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no visa I require if business is booming in Viewfort to prevent me from going to Viewfort to do business. I am concerned that for the next 40 years, that plan, I think that was an excellent plan that UWP had to build a home port for cruise ships in Viewfort. And let's not even talk about all the ancillary benefits that would come with it into little businesses and so on. That we cannot look at that for the next 40 years.
No. So
our sovereignty now has been given to GPH.
And Andre, I mean, the brilliance of Alan Chasney, a lot of people don't fully understand the vision. The only person I saw that had that type of vision for St. Lucia was Sir John. And this is not to flatter Alan Chasney. You work with an individual and you understand what he brings to the table. You interact with people and you know what they can produce because you've seen them. When we negotiated to build the cruise port in Viewfort for home porting, and so that people can understand what home porting is, it is where people fly in and they board the cruise ship in St. Lucia. So their cruise begins in St. Lucia and it ends in St. Lucia. You need at least 2,000 to 3,000 hotel rooms in the south between Airbnb, hotels, because everybody who comes on the cruise ship cannot fly in on the same day and leave the same day. So that people have an appreciation. We were not, part of the reason why we moved the terminal is because the existing terminal would not be removed. Remember, the problem with the existing terminal is that it's too close to the runway for the 737s to park in front of it, so they have to go on the side. So the thinking was leave that there, and that's going to be a dedicated facility for the cruise passengers. So in negotiations with the cruise lines, they agreed that they were going to allow, in the first instance, there would be up to 75,000 passengers per year flying in to be able to start a cruise in St. Lucia. So think of this. I'm not even looking at what they pay on the cruise ship. This additional 75,000 people would be coming from all around the world. So you would now have more flights coming into St. Lucia. The airport tax is $98. If you round it off to $100 for easy calculation, 75,000 would give you $7.5 million a year just from the airport tax. We've not spoken about these people spending 2 nights before they board the ship and 2 nights after they come, before they get their flight. They're eating, they're drinking. Then the cruise ships would buy a lot more agricultural produce from St. Lucia because the cruise begins there. So they have to restock the ship. You need maybe to have a fuel facility to be able to sell fuel to these cruise ships. Think of our bananas. We don't have a market. There are tons of bananas going to waste. The only market the farmers tell me they have a little something is Antigua. Can you imagine having to produce enough ripe bananas, just ripe bananas, build 2 free ripening houses, and you know every week you have 2 free cruise ships coming into the harbor and they buying a container load of bananas? Can you imagine fresh produce, mangoes, whatever is in season? Andre,
that's what I want to hear you all say, because you talk about the cruise ship, for cruise ship, and yes, it's a benefit and so on, but what about all of those little ancillary things you're talking about there now? That is business for us, St. Lucians, local St. Lucians. Taxi drivers going to benefit, farmers going to benefit, vendors going to benefit, restaurateurs going to benefit, I mean, these are the things we have to highlight.
So if you think of it, Andre, a year has 12 months, okay? During the peak of the cruise season, you would have over 3,000. Because 12 to have 75,000, you need about 6,000 people a month. 6 12s is 72. Okay? So think of every month, 6,000 tourists being in Viewfort for a period of time, a day, 2 days, 3 days. Can you imagine the economic activity that is going to be generated in the south of the island? You would be redeploying the population. You see people having to make all kinds of arrangements to live in Castries. People from Castries would now begin to go to Viewfort to work. And a lot of people who have been displaced from Viewfort, originally from Soufrière all the way back to Dennery, would now be able to re-establish themselves in the south, because the south has the potential for great economic activity. And that is why I am lost as to why the Philip JP administration, Kenny was 15 years Prime Minister. Even if you could not do it, you mean to tell me UWP came up with such a brilliant plan for the south of the island? You won the election. You couldn't even take that vision and run with it and say, hey, for my legacy, before I leave politics, at least let me make this happen for the south. I mean, we want to talk about legacy. The legacy of Sir John is well established. Rodney Bay Marina, Roseau Dam, the development of the city, the East Coast Road, the West Coast Road, water supply projects, you name it. You can see it. What has labor? What is the legacy of labor in St. Lucia? So when we talk about doing something in the South, it's not about politics. It's about balancing the economic activity in St. Lucia. And the idea of the highway, Andre, and when we went to the $98, let me break it down so that people understand.
Which highway?
The highway from Bon Séjour to Dennery in the first instance, and then Dennery to Vieux-Fort, a straight highway. When we went to the $98, Andre, $35 was going to pay for the airport. And in about 10 to 15 years, if we remain at the same number of passengers, we would have paid the airport with the $35 per head for people coming in on the flights. Then SLASPA would get $25. There was another $10 that was a buffer, and then there was another $28 US. That was the money to pay for the highway. So we were not putting any additional tax burdens on the people of St. Lucia.
I want to stop you, guy. You see, Andre, that is a government with foresight and vision. We want to develop a country. These are the things we need to do. What are the revenue sources? Go ahead, guy.
Yes, so when the cruise, because remember, all your hotels in the north, everybody come to the south. So we were justifying that paying the airport development tax and the $28 going towards the highway. It makes the commute so easy. St. Lucia is 27 miles long at the longest point. So that road maximum, because you'll have a few turns there and there, not major turns, but you'd build an international highway that you can drive at 65 miles an hour. If the length of the road is 30 miles, Andre, at 65 miles an hour, Vieux-Fort to Gros-Islet becomes a 30-minute drive. You could leave here, go for lunch in Vieux-Fort and come back. That is what vision planning is about. That is why we said, and I have to come to speak about the Kuwaiti Fund and what they're doing with the highway. The money you spending on the Castries-Gros-Islet highway, we were going to do the 4-lane, but we believe that that road to the back there was priority. Because if you can do the first phase of the road, and you can bypass all that congestion of traffic coming into town, everybody going down south can use that back road from Bon Séjour to Dennery. That becomes a 10 minutes drive, you know, Andre.
I want to add something here too. You have a home port there where cruise ships come in, and I imagine it will be planned that we have mega cruise ships coming here. You know, the tours, I can have a tour in Gros-Islet, and there's enough time for the passenger to come, do the tour, and get back to Vieux-Fort in time to catch a ship.
In fact, the drive would be much quicker from Vieux-Fort to Gros-Islet than from Castries to Gros-Islet. That is the vision. That is how you develop a country. You see what Jamaica has done with the highway linking Ocho Rios and these places to Kingston. You have to go through the mountains. It was hours, 3-4 hours of driving. Now in an hour you make it. You look at Barbados with its highways. You look at Trinidad. Everywhere that has developed sufficiently, your road network is critical. Tell me one new road Labour has added for all their years in government. All we continue to see is they can't even repair the existing roads, Andre. A fella sent me his axles are broken in potholes.
A guy talking about roads, I just want to segue a little to say this. I noticed that the government has started work on the Vieux-Sequi road, Norbert Vieux-Sequi road. Now that is a road, first of all, that was established by the UWP. It was Peter Philip who established that road. Then that road had become so deplorable that not even my samurai could pass through that road. When I became parliamentary rep, I repaired that road, and thank God I did, because when we had Thomas, the Montoute Bridge had gone, the Bois Bridge had gone, and that was the bypass to get to Castries. Now, well, when we got back into office, the plan was that we would fix all of those back roads, including that as one of the major roads. We'd widen it and fix it properly before we started work on the Castries-Grosley Highway. So that while work was going on the Castries-Grosley Highway, the back road would take the strain, but it would be much better than it is now, where in some cases 2 vehicles can hardly pass. Okay, I even went as far as I know probably Guy and them didn't like that, but I even went as far as parliamentary rep to say that after the project is done, we can put a toll at Shock, so people go into Grosley will pay toll. If you don't have money to pay toll, people who don't have money usually have time. You can take the back road and go for free. And people who are busy, who don't have time, usually have money, so that would be raising revenue for Grosley. All of that. I'm just saying so to tell you that the plan was there. They spent 4 years in government. Only now, because an election is approaching, they're attempting to carry out that very same plan that has been there, okay, for over 5 years. They're trying to carry it out now. You know, I have to say too little, too late. Because, you see, look at the stress and frustration people are going through in Grosley. If we were allowed to complete the road, the fall-in and the roundabouts around the Rodney Bay area, we would not be going through all the stress we're going through now. The fact that it was not done, now that they're doing the back road, Andre, stress, you know, a lot of time is lost.
I need to say something on this. My information is saying that the repairs they are doing to the Nobe Viesique Road is $40 million.
Wow.
The ministry...
So it's not just a campaign, it's not just an election project, it's an election funding project.
Because,
you know?
Andre, we were doing from by Volney to the Bonteg Gap there, 2 roundabouts, slab drains, sidewalks, lighting, overpass, 2 lanes of road. And I want anybody, because this is how you measure roads. You add in an additional lane from one point to the other. You add an additional lane. So if you reduce that to a single lane, it is double the length, if you follow what I'm saying. Because you put in 2 lanes. Now you're widening a road to put 1 lane. And it is costing, from my information, subject to correction, but they have left us to speculate. The numbers I'm hearing, I'm still baffled. I don't want to believe. When we build that road, you remember the ministry, you recommended the contractor. The ministry said the work he tendered too cheap. I was the minister. They said they cannot give him the job because his price is too low. I think it was about $800 and something thousand at the time, or 900,000. They said he could not do the road for that price. We called a meeting. When Spider spoke to me, we called a meeting. We brought in the contractor. The contractor said, I'm signing an agreement. Hold me to it. I'm going to deliver the road for the price. I say, well, if the man can build a road for that price, why go and pay more? But the ministry did not want to give him the road for the price that he tendered.
Well, you see, that is not, and I hope the contractor doesn't take offense or objection. That's not really a secret. I can divulge the information. It was Brian Joseph who was the contractor, and he built that road. And Guy, I want to say to you, when Hurricane Thomas came, most of our roads were badly damaged because, you know, it was water running everywhere, flood and everything like that. That road, that road withstood that storm.
All the heavy traffic everything.
You know?
So, and I have to compliment Brian because he did a good job on today. You just widening the road. So I don't know if the 40 million I'm hearing includes acquisition of property. So maybe somebody. Now, why are these things being done secretly? Why isn't the government? Why isn't there a billboard? Why isn't there something, a big groundbreaking ceremony? Because everything they do in groundbreaking ceremony to give the people of St. Lucia the information. I just passed there and I see Reno on the road working. I see they doing stuff. You hearing big money being paid. So I want people to put that into perspective. When they said there was bubble on the Castries Grosile Highway, I want to hear measurements. What is the length of the road that they are building? And what is, and remember, they're working there all during the day. On the Castries Grosile Highway, the work was being done in the night, which is usually more costly for the contractor to work at night so that there was not a traffic problem. Traffic management, you couldn't close the highway. Traffic management was more costly. That is what, you see, I want St. Lucians to understand. We can have our political sides. We can talk our politics. We can agree, we can disagree. But you see, when it comes to development, you see, when it comes to how we spend the money of the country, I believe every government needs to be held accountable for every dollar that they spend and how they spend it. And I want St. Lucia to know, and I'm challenging Mr. King and the Ministry of Infrastructure. Tell the people what you all are paying Fresh Start for the road to do. What is the final figure? Because, Andre, when we gave that contract to Fresh Start, when the government gave, he had the contract for $15 million. That included the design of the road and everything within that price. It couldn't go $1. It was a fixed price contract. He couldn't claim cost overrun or price change on him. Nothing. We didn't look at rates. We agreed on a fixed price. The Labour Party government came in. They stopped the project. They had 45 days to review the project. 45 days to review the project and get back to the contractor. I think 145 days passed and they were not giving the contractor permission to go and continue the work. So once they had passed that time limit, the contractor had the option to terminate. The ministry could terminate, the contractor could terminate. Because they breached the terms of the contract, the contractor terminated. Once you terminate a contract prematurely, you have to now go to measured works. And measured works has a rate established by the Ministry of Infrastructure. So when they use the measured rate, for the amount of work that was done already, it came to over $21 million. That is the contract they tell you that. So we were doing it for $15 million and they say there was bubble. Half the work was done and the measured works by the ministry's rate, it's at $21 million. And my understanding is that is what they are paying Fresh Start for the road. That is incomplete. I believe that Philip J. Pierre and Stevenson King should be made to pay the difference.
Now, let me just say this. Andre, again, they have to find themselves eating their vomit. Now that an election is approaching, people are talking and complaining about the fact that they stopped that project for no reason, causing us stress, traffic problems, and delays of the north. Not to mention what Guy just said, all the exorbitant amount that is going to cost the taxpayers of St. Lucia to pay the excesses because of that decision. They're trying to cover up now because election is coming, so they're trying to make good on what should have been done. And they're trying to cover. Here the excuse they came with. They said, they gave a reason why they stopped the road. What was the reason they gave, Guy? Do you
I'm
know?
not sure what reason
They gave a reason. I must try to recollect what the reason was. Okay? But something ridiculous they gave. Why they stopped the construction of the road to Grosili. These are the things that St. Lucians have to look at. What this government is costing us, how much inconvenience they're causing us, and how much they're wasting the resources of the state.
Well, we got the impression that there's some hanky-panky taking place.
Well, let me just say something. There are some hanky-panky taking place because Fresh Start is Guy Joseph's company, and there's a ball going on and everything like that.
Yeah.
They campaign on that. They won an election on those kinds of lies and so on. When they got in, of course, you have all the documents now. You're in office. You have no excuse. So take Guy Joseph to task. They cannot do anything about it because it was a made-up lie. So they buy time by putting in special prosecutor and all of kind of things. So special prosecutor has been sitting there drawing a salary on the backs of taxpayers, or nothing doing. When one of their supporters said to them, "But you told us about Guy Joseph and so on, and up to now, the special prosecutor has been appointed, nothing is happening," and so on. You know what the Prime Minister said to the individual? If you have evidence, go to bring it to the special prosecutor. In other words, they're the ones making the allegations and the accusations. But if you have evidence, bring it. A bluff. And I hope St. Lucians have, seen through that and make those guys pay for that kind of insult and disrespect. Now they have nothing else to say about Guy Joseph because, of course, they are exposed now. That all you all were doing was telling lies and bluffing. They gave him something new about you,
I heard something. I heard something about
Yes,
this.
I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah.
Would you like to use this opportunity to address that, Mr. Joseph?
Andre, I don't even know what to address because, this is so far-fetched and absurd. I heard they said I was at the cricket ground and somebody confronted me. I'm heard snippets of this thing. I'm clueless about it. Thursday night, we had a meeting, an executive meeting.
But to be sure, your name was never mentioned in public. This is speculation now.
Yeah. Well, I leave it as speculation. But that speculation could never be referring to Guy Joseph. Never. I have always conducted myself, and I want to tell St. Lucians, we can expect a lot more. In fact, somebody actually came to my office yesterday and said to me, "I know what is going on. They are trying to generate an AI chat to show that you are in communication with somebody." But you know what, Andre? They've tried that before. When they went after you, Balders, they tried to come after me. That's not the first time. Labor has gone to women and offered them money to say things about Guy Joseph. And the women say, "But how can I say that about him? I don't know that about him." Labor has gone to every length to come after me. They've tried the corruption, the stealing, the ball. It has not worked. You think they will stop? When Shelton Daniel said on his program, we have to do whatever it takes
to prevent
Guy Joseph from going to the parliament. They've changed the candidate in Castries Southeast. They are not satisfied. So now they want to come and invent other things. Andre, labor rights will believe what they want to believe. But I want to say something to St. Lucians. Today is my turn, because I'm in the political arena. Tomorrow will be somebody else. This Labour Party, I know their strategy, because the same people who sit and plan with them, I get the information. I understand what is at play. I understand why Labour is so determined to come after me. I think Alan Chasney and myself are the number one targets. And it is sad because we all have families. We all have people. I can handle the politics, Andre. I can handle everything they send at me. I have a wife. I have sisters. I have brothers. I don't want to say fortunately, my mother never really wanted me to be there. She's resting peacefully now. She always used to tell me, "Ese ou yon ki en politics, ki man ya tout ba isi an le ou yo ye." You know, labor stops at nothing. They did it to Von Lewis. They did it to Stevenson King when he was on our side. They did it to Sir John. Every politician who aspires to do something, labor goes after them. So,
Guy, I'm going to answer that. There's a simple answer to that question. I don't want your head to grow because I say that.
Yeah.
But the leaders, they go after the leaders. Because if you cut the head, the body will die. And you, Guy, are one of the most tenacious, appealing politicians in the United Workers' Party, so they have to cut you down too. That's simply what it is.
Yeah.
But Guy, before I forget, I was asking you what was the reason they gave for stopping the road. They said there was no public consultation. Andre, let me tell you something. I was the parliamentary representative, okay? You can ask the other officers who worked, like the social transformation officer and the engineer for the north and all of those people, and you can ask the residents of Rodney Bay. We had several meetings with them. I attended at least 2 meetings, public consultation, with the residents of Rodney Bay area. So that, again, once more, is another lie. I wish I had footage of those meetings to show. That is another lie. But there are people that are alive. There are people living in Rodney Bay. You can ask them. We had more than one consultation with the residents of Rodney Bay on that matter. So that is another blatant lie, an excuse to cover up their bad decisions and the fact that they have perpetrated yet another atrocity on the people of St. Lucia that is costing us millions.
So, Mr. Joseph, I want to get back to you.
Yeah.
Do you think that all this, negative stuff that was said about you and continues to be said about you, did you think that played a part in you losing your seat the last
Andre,
time?
I believe so. Because people hear things, they hear it, and then they begin to believe, boy.
If you say it often enough.
There must be something to that. Now.
So do you think right now that this has changed people's perception of you?
Yes, because people are now seeing, but if 20 years y'all saying something about a man, y'all said when y'all come in for him. Y'all appoint a special prosecutor. So when they go with that story now, it's not going to stick. People will tell them, you can't come and tell me a man did something. They said that farm in Canada. How difficult it is for the government through its contacts to establish where you have property. I always declared to Integrity Commission. I don't have nothing outside of St. Lucia. So anything I have can be traced to where I am. And they can establish what I had before I came into politics. So right now,
so I want to ask you the direct question. I want a definitive answer. What I'm hearing, I'm sure Andrea said it too, is that you're a pedophile, that you get involved with a 12-year-old. I'm asking you the question, is that true?
Never. That could never happen with Guy Joseph. Right. Never. Okay. And I really want one of them to say it in a manner that I can. Because 2 of them have written me letters to file lawsuits. Alison Jean and the other one from Nikolai Lansiko. I've received the letters. I'm waiting to go to court. But I want to say to the Labour Party, you'll have to try harder and you'll have to do better. At least come with something that have some credibility and that can make sense. These things, you remember, Andre, the attack on me on the church didn't happen by accident, That was a strategic plan of the Labour Party. I know that. That was initiated by the consultants that work for the Labour Party to call attention. You think it's by accident the man entered the church 10 o'clock, by 11 o'clock everybody in the Labour Party was, we stand with you? You think that happened by accident? These things are orchestrated. And I expect more of these things coming into this election because there's a greater level of desperation by the Labour Party. But I want to put people like Shelton Daniel, The Anson person they told me about that is it. I have people reviewing the tapes, and you don't necessarily have to mention somebody's name in something. If you insinuate, and people... Now, Andre, I generally don't like to waste my time with court. My case is still going on with Miguel. They push it to December again. So, 5 years, a simple matter, straightforward to deal with. Our justice system is just not working. But I want St. Lucians to know. You want to know what UWP will do? Sunday is the day to focus on.
All right. Thank you.
Because, Andre, we've been talking, we are going to outline plans. What a UWP government will do when we get into office. We're not just going to Mikud on Sunday to present 17 candidates, you know. 17 candidates, any party except Labour Party can present 17 candidates because they can present 17. They may have 15 as they say. But it is the quality of the candidates and it is the plans that you have that makes the difference. And we are going down to Mikud. The 7th is the anniversary of Sir John's death. The greatest leader this country has had. We are having this rally in honor of the memory of Sir John. We are going to outline what Sir John's vision was for St. Lucia and how his vision, we have taken it. You remember his famous speech in the parliament when he said, I will take you to the top of the mountain, but I may not be there to take you to the promised land. Well, it is the intention of this UWP to make St. Lucia the promised land that Sir John had envisioned. We have tweaked some things because some things have changed, you know, developments, but all St. Lucians, you don't have to be UWP, all St. Lucians are invited to be in Mikud because we are going to outline, we are going to present the new candidates, we are going to present the 17 candidates, and added to that, we are going to outline some of the vision. We'll not be able to do everything in one rally, but there are key pronouncements that will be made, that will interest you, Andre, and that will interest all St. Lucians.
Guy, I know thanks to you, we have provided a lot of information there, but I made a promise, Andre, at the top of the show that we have not kept. We didn't open the lines. You know?
Well, we won't have time today, for sure. No.
But I want to be able.
So let me ask you, Mr. Joseph, why do you think that the incumbent has changed your contender in the constituency? What do you think is going on? Do you think that they fear your popularity?
I don't want to play in the minds of the people. You know, the Labour Party has not given us an explanation, but they have a lot more candidates to change. That's as much. I mean, it's not.
No, they can't do that, guy. They can't do that because it's too embarrassing. The people will do it for them.
You know, and that is where St. Lucians must begin to take people at their words. Philip J. Pierre, before he changed any candidate, said they were going to win all 17 seats with the candidates they had at the time. Since then, he has changed 4, which means that he knew he couldn't win. He will need to change another 8 if he wants to have an outside chance of winning the election. The momentum is with UWP. The tide is with UWP.
What makes you say that?
Andre, I'm on the ground, you know. But it's not what we say on the media, it's who you interact with.
And
on the ground.
Guy and them have their polls doing, okay? So he will not want to divulge that information. Now, I'm not privy to the information of the polls.
So, Andre.
Guy, look at I'm sorry, not Guy. Andre, look at the numbers on Media Opposition. Look at the numbers tomorrow. And see where people interest lie.
When Philip J. Pierre was addressing the youth rally in Dennery, and I was speaking at the Sunday Live indoors, I had twice the amount of listeners, followers that he had. The Prime Minister was speaking at a youth rally. I was speaking at an event that we are having every Sunday. Not any spectacular big event. And I had twice the number of listeners
The same thing
had.
happened when they had their meeting in Ancillary, and we had the Sunday Live going on. It doubled their numbers.
So, not just that. Andre, on Sunday, we are going to make a statement in Castries Southeast. And I know the North is coming down. But I told them I don't want nobody to join my motorcade until I reach Wavin Poisson. We are starting in Forest here. We are going through the Mon. We are going down through Goodlands. We go through Lacqua, Badney. And then we going up the Bexon Highway. And when we get to Wavin Poisson, we will wait for the rest of the people who will come and join us. Because I want to go through the constituency so they see Castries Southeast people. We expect to have more than 50 vehicles in that motorcade on Sunday. And that is just to make a basic statement as to where Castries Southeast stands. So, change of candidate, I can tell them run both candidates if they want. And tally the votes together. And that will not, because let me tell you, it's not Guy Joseph that is strong. It's not Guy Joseph. It's the people of Castries Southeast. The people of Castries Southeast was bluffed by the Labour Party.
Can fool some people sometime.
They knew that Labour let them down.
Yeah.
I have, for the first time in the history of me being in politics, people are just walking into my office every day and offering, what help do you need in the campaign? We are available to campaign with you, to support you. If you hear my speeches, I don't speak about my opponent, you know. My opponent is the St. Lucia Labour Party. It is the Labour Party that must not be in office because it is Labour Party that is bad for St. Lucia. There may be some reasonable people in the Labour Party, but it's the party policies that is bad for St. Lucia. How could they allow Hile to do that with CIP and with GPH? And that is why the leadership of the UWP, that is why we went to Mikud. People say it's because you're afraid. We're going to have a rally in the boulevard, but because it's the anniversary of Sir John's death, and that we want people to understand that a great leader has passed, we are going to have a rally in his memory. But the great work that he did in St. Lucia and he started will continue. And that is what the thrust of this rally is all about. And you have everybody from Soufre coming down that side of the southwest. Then you have those from, we expect to join with Dennery. You know, the last time we had a rally, when my people reached Dennery, they said too many people. The police did not allow more vehicles to go down. They said there was too many people on the road already. Now it was COVID and we understood why that happened. But this is not about Guy Joseph. We started a work in Castries Southeast and we intend to finish it. We started work in St. Lucia, and I believe that Alan Chasney, as leader, we had a policy meeting earlier this week where we discussed, Andre, we don't spend time discussing the opposition, you know. Every time Labour Party comes and they ask them a question, whether press briefing, not press briefing, everything they talk about is the opposition. You know what we do? We strategize, we plan. What are our policies? How are we going to implement these policies? So GPH, every candidate of the United Workers' Party has been fully briefed on the arrangement with GPH. Everybody has been given a fact sheet. No, we don't give no false information. We don't want none of our candidates going on a platform and telling a lie to try and be elected. People are telling us y'all can make a lot of promises. I had a meeting in my constituency, Andre. The people were telling me, but you need, I said, I'm not going to promise anything just to win an election that when the time comes, I have to give you an excuse. No. If you want to buy, because everybody can promise, you know, Andre. Promises are easy to make. It's keeping them that's the problem. And I want to say one other thing.
Yes, we have to wrap up. We have to wrap up.
You
Go
see
ahead.
how desperate Labour is? I met Kenson at the cricket ground. We were having a nice laugh, a chat about things. You know, we embraced each other. Labour Party has taken this to make something with AI and say that I assaulted the minister. Andre, I've said to St. Lucians, and I will repeat it on your program, we must not get vexed with each other for the sake of politicians, because politicians don't get vexed with each other. I may disagree with Kenson's policy. I disagree with what Labour Party does. But Kenson as a person, I will never meet him, not greet him, and not be cordial with him or anybody in the Labour Party. In fact, the two people I see with the most hatred in the present Labour Party who would not interact is Steve and Richard. All the other fellas in Labour. When I meet Sean, I meet Alva. If I meet the Prime Minister, I will shake his hand. When I met him for the first time after I won, I went to him and I said, congratulations, Mr. Prime Minister. That is how I interact with people. So for Labour Party to be so desperate, so you know why they've come after me about the event at cricket? Andre, I went to cricket and I surprised myself. Okay? The amount of people who wanted to take pictures with me. The amount, you know, Simple from Grozy Lake came there and start saying something. The people, I didn't know the people who were there, and they started booing him. He had to leave there and go. And I was, because I never go, even when I was in government, I don't go to the VIP. When I went to cricket on Thursday, you know in whose booth I was invited? The same Thursday they said I was in whatever fracas of the, you know where I was? I was in the booth of the owner of the Kings. You'd see the pictures that was posted. Both the owner of the Kings and the Patriots, we were in the same booth. We hung out there a little while, and afterwards, Mr. Shasney and myself, we went down into the crowd because I always go to Johnson Charleston to watch cricket. But they saw the reaction, and that's why I know when the tide is with us. When you see you walk through a crowd of thousands of people and everybody give you the thumbs up, everybody want to win. Now some people, their face will be screwed up when they see you because they don't like. I watch a police officer in uniform, well gowned, and he stood in a corner. I've seen him on one of the campaign trails, and he stood there with his phone and he's recording. About 6 or 7 ladies came and hugged me, one after the other. But I'm waiting for the release of the video because I want to know whether that was the job of that police officer to be recording me kind of secretly. So is it to show that these people are UWP so they can be victimized? You see, there's a lot going on with this Labour Party, and we have to beware. And I'm putting that particular police officer on notice. I know you. I saw you. And I want you to know, I pretended as if I didn't see you. I pretended as if I didn't observe what you were doing. Because if I had made it so obvious that I was monitoring what he was doing, he would have stopped. Because there were 3 of them standing there, and he kind of stand behind them by one of the pillars, one of the beams under the stands, and he's there recording. And I'm watching the phone on me, but I'm glancing and I'm hugging the people that was hugging me. So I'm just saying, why would police officers be doing that? That is the problem. So Andre, I want you to come to Mikud on Sunday, you know, Andre. You have to have something to report on your radio.
No, so you can see firsthand, Andre. So when I come here and I say what I say, you know firsthand what the actual situation is. On Fridays when they come here and say what they say, then you know. you can see for yourself. But Andre,
We have to wrap up.
yeah, we have to wrap up. I want to thank you, Andre, for always adding to the program like you do.
And giving you extra time.
And giving me extra time. I do appreciate that. Guy, I want to thank you, as always, full of information and very interesting. I'm sure my listeners and viewers appreciated your presence here today. I want to thank all of you who are listening. Unfortunately, we didn't have the calls today, but if you want to hear more, find yourself in Miku on Sunday, where the 17 candidates will be presented, and I'm sure we'll get some snippets of some of the plans that the UWP have for St. Lucia. Thank you, and have a good weekend, all of you.
What time is the event starting on Sunday?
We expect everybody to be there for 4 p.m. So we want all the moto kids that are coming from all parts of the island to program themselves to be in Mikud. And you have to give yourself extra time because there'll be a lot of traffic on the road on that day. But we expect the event to be what it was meant to be in the boulevard and even better.
Okay.
So, thank you very much. All I can assure you is that I will be there, and we will be discussing it on Monday on Like It Is. Thank you very much, and have a blessed day.
Thank you, Mr. Lenard Spider-Montoute and Mr. Guy Joseph. You've been listening to and viewing Meet the Opposition, heard exclusively on Rev-Up St. Lucia every Thursday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. So this is the end of my stint here on Rev-Up for today, Thursday, the 4th of September. We have Kina coming on next. She'll be with you until 3 this afternoon. And during that time, we have our brand new program starting at 11:30 this morning, which is the Healing Process with Phil and Claire Leon. That's coming up at 11:30 this morning. And of course, later, Zen the DJ from 3 until 5. And from 5 until 6, we have Powell Politic, hosted by Mary Podio. So do enjoy the rest of your day. Andre Paul saying so long.